General Harrison Morrison stepped to the microphone, his weathered face scanning the assembled candidates. $23, says the rookie washes out in the first hour, whispered Staff Sergeant Kyle Brennan to his companion. The other instructor chuckled and shook his head, already counting his winnings as his eyes settled on Marine Corporal Elena Vasquez, standing at attention in the back row. The morning sun cast long shadows across the Quantico sniper training facility, but the heat radiating from the asphalt was nothing compared to the intensity building in Morrison's voice. Today we test the shot that separates pretenders from legends, he announced, his words carrying across the silent formation. 2,400 meters. Variable wind conditions. Moving target simulation. In 30 years of training elite marksmen, I have seen a 15% success rate among combat veterans with multiple deployments. Elena felt the weight of 22 pairs of eyes assessing her as Morrison continued his briefing. She's never even seen combat, muttered Gunnery Sergeant Maria Calderon from the instructor platform. How's she supposed to make a shot that defeats seasoned warriors? The question hung in the air like smoke from the morning's first cigarette, unanswered but understood by everyone present. The general's clipboard held statistics that told the story of this qualification's legendary difficulty. Names of decorated snipers who had attempted and failed this exact test. Purple Heart recipients who couldn't compensate for the wind shear at extreme distance. Bronze Star marksmen who watched their rounds fall short of the impossible target. Only legends hit that far, Morrison stated, his eyes moving deliberately across each candidate before settling on Elena with unmistakable skepticism. Think she even knows what 2.5 clicks looks like? Asked Master Sergeant David Thornton, not bothering to lower his voice. The instructor beside him, Staff Sergeant Rachel Kimura, shrugged and checked her watch. This'll be over before lunch. Quick elimination round. She'll see the target through the scope and probably request immediate withdrawal. Elena maintained her position at attention, but her jaw tightened almost imperceptibly as she absorbed each dismissive comment. The instructors weren't trying to hide their doubt. If anything, they seemed to be broadcasting it, perhaps hoping she would take the hint and spare everyone the inevitable disappointment of watching her fail spectacularly. The legendary shot had earned its reputation through decades of humbling, experienced marksmen. Morrison explained the technical requirements with the precision of someone who had witnessed countless attempts and failures. The target sat at the maximum effective range of their rifles, beyond the distance where most snipers had ever engaged actual threats. Environmental factors at that range became exponentially more complex. Wind direction could shift 3 times between trigger pull and impact. Atmospheric pressure affected trajectory in ways that required mathematical calculation beyond standard field estimation. Before we continue with today's qualification details, Morrison paused, dropping a comment, and let us know what state you're watching from. Maybe you've witnessed similar acts of courage where you're from. The brief moment of community connection felt natural in the rhythm of his briefing, acknowledging the gravity of what these candidates faced and inviting observers to share in the weight of the moment. 2 decades of instruction had taught Morrison to read candidates quickly, the way they held their rifles, how they responded to pressure, whether they possessed the mental discipline required for extreme precision shooting. Elena's file showed impressive performance in basic marksmanship training, but impressive performance on a 500-meter range bore no resemblance to the legendary requirements they face today. He had seen confident marksmen crumble when confronted with shots that pushed beyond the realm of standard military engagement. Corporal Vasquez, Morrison called out, his voice carrying across the formation with the authority of 3 decades in uniform. You understand that this qualification represents the pinnacle of long-range marksmanship. Even our most experienced combat veterans struggle with the variables at this distance. Are you certain you want to proceed with today's testing rather than requesting additional training time? The offer was clearly intended as a face-saving exit ramp, delivered with enough volume that every candidate and instructor could hear. Elena's response would set the tone for everything that followed. "Sir, I am ready to attempt the qualification as scheduled," she replied, her voice steady despite the weight of 23 skeptical gazes. Gunnery Sergeant Calderon exchanged a meaningful look with Master Sergeant Thornton. "The kid has no idea what she's walking into," Calderon whispered. "She's about to learn the difference between confidence and competence." Thornton nodded, already preparing mentally for the brief conversation they would have with Elena after her inevitable failure, explaining how additional training might eventually prepare her for challenges of this magnitude. The legendary shot had humbled marksmen with twice Elena's experience and 10 times her combat exposure. Morrison had personally witnessed Navy SEALs miss this target by margins that defied explanation. Army Rangers who could place shots with surgical precision at normal engagement distances found themselves completely outmatched by the variables at 2,400 meters. Marine snipers with confirmed kills in multiple theaters returned from this range, shaking their heads in bewildered frustration. Today's weather conditions added another layer of complexity to an already impossible challenge. Morning winds carried moisture from the nearby Potomac River, creating atmospheric disturbances that experienced shooters knew would affect bullet trajectory in unpredictable ways. The temperature differential between ground level and target elevation created thermal layers that veteran marksmen spent years learning to read and compensate for. Elena absorbed every technical detail Morrison provided, but she also heard the undertone of certainty in his voice. He wasn't briefing them on a difficult challenge that some might overcome with skill and preparation. He was describing a test designed to demonstrate the limits of human capability in precision shooting, a qualification that existed not to pass candidates, but to show them the gap between their current abilities and legendary status. The formation dispersed toward the equipment shed, and Elena found herself walking alone while groups of candidates clustered together, their conversations centering on her obvious inexperience. "She's got maybe 6 months of active duty," observed Lance Corporal Marcus Webb to his companion. "I've been shooting competitively since I was 12, and I wouldn't attempt that shot without another year of advanced training." Staff Sergeant Brennan intercepted Elena's path to the rifle rack, his expression mixing professional concern with barely concealed doubt. "Corporal Vasquez," he said, stopping close enough that nearby candidates could overhear, "I need to verify your understanding of what you're attempting today. This isn't advanced marksmanship training. This is a qualification that has defeated snipers with multiple combat deployments. The failure rate among experienced marksmen exceeds 85%. Elena met his gaze directly. "I understand the requirements, Staff Sergeant." Brennan studied her face for signs of wavering confidence, finding none, but also seeing no indication that she truly comprehended the magnitude of the challenge ahead. "The kid thinks this is just another range qualification," he thought, already preparing for the conversation they would have after her inevitable miss. Gunnery Sergeant Calderon approached with Elena's assigned rifle, a precision instrument that had been zeroed by expert armorers for today's specific conditions. "This weapon represents the pinnacle of long-range accuracy technology," she explained, her tone suggesting that equipment alone wouldn't bridge the gap between Elena's limited experience and legendary requirements. Master Sergeant Torres achieved a confirmed kill at 1,900 meters with this exact rifle in Afghanistan. Today you're attempting to exceed his range by 500 meters. The weight of the rifle felt familiar in Elena's hands, but she noticed how Calderon watched her handling technique with microscopic attention, clearly searching for evidence that she lacked the fundamental skills required for extreme precision shooting. Behind them, Sergeant First Class Anthony Ruiz whispered to his partner, "Watch how she shoulders it." Rookies always telegraph their inexperience in the first 30 seconds of weapon handling. Elena's grip and stance revealed extensive training, but Calderon had seen technically proficient marksmen crumble under the psychological pressure of attempting legendary shots. Technical competence at standard ranges meant nothing when facing challenges that pushed beyond the boundaries of normal military engagement. "She's handling the weapon correctly," Calderon admitted quietly to Master Sergeant Thornton, "but handling and performing are completely different things at 2,400 meters. The equipment briefing continued with detailed explanations of scope adjustments, atmospheric compensation, and wind reading techniques that separated precision shooting from basic marksmanship. Elena absorbed each technical detail while around her. Instructors exchanged glances that communicated their shared certainty about today's outcome. Morrison had specifically requested that they provide thorough instruction to ensure no candidate could claim inadequate preparation as an excuse for failure. Corporal Jake Morrison, the general's nephew and a seasoned marksman himself, positioned himself near Elena during the technical briefing. He had attempted this qualification twice, missing both times by margins that defied his considerable skill and experience. "I've seen combat in 3 different theaters," he told her quietly, his voice carrying the weight of someone sharing hard-earned wisdom. "I've made shots under pressure that other snipers call impossible. This qualification is different. It exists in a category beyond normal human capability." Elena nodded respectfully, but didn't respond, focusing instead on the ballistic calculations being demonstrated on the instruction board. Her silence prompted Jake to continue. "The wind patterns at that distance create micro-zones of turbulence that experienced meteorologists struggle to predict. Even if you calculate everything perfectly, environmental variables can change between your trigger pull and bullet impact. That's why they call it a legendary shot." Staff Sergeant Kimura overheard their conversation and added her own perspective. "I've trained marksmen for 8 years, she said, her tone carrying the authority of someone who had witnessed countless attempts at this qualification. The candidates who succeed possess something beyond technical skill. They demonstrate an almost supernatural ability to read environmental conditions that can't be taught through instruction. It's an intuitive understanding that develops through years of experience under extreme conditions." The morning progressed with detailed instruction on range estimation, atmospheric pressure compensation, and the mathematical formulas required for precise ballistic calculation at extreme distance. Elena participated actively in each exercise, demonstrating solid understanding of the technical requirements while around her. Instructors noted her competence, but remained convinced that competence wouldn't translate to performance when facing legendary requirements. During a brief break in instruction, she overheard Gunnery Sergeant Calderon speaking quietly with Master Sergeant Thornton near the water station. "The kid's technically sound," Calderon admitted, "but technique means nothing when you're facing variables that combat veterans can't master. I've seen decorated snipers with confirmed kills at 1,800 meters miss this target by 20 feet. Experience teaches humility about what's actually possible in precision shooting." Thornton nodded, glancing toward Elena, who was studying wind direction indicators with intense focus. She doesn't understand yet that this isn't about preparation or determination. This qualification exists to demonstrate the difference between exceptional marksmen and legendary status. Legendary means achieving what others consider impossible, not just difficult. The technical briefing concluded with a detailed explanation of the target itself, positioned at maximum effective range behind natural terrain features that created additional challenges for bullet trajectory calculation. The target represented a realistic threat scenario, but one that pushed beyond the engagement distances where even elite military snipers normally operated. Elena listened to every specification while around her. Experienced marksmen absorbed the same information with growing appreciation for the qualification's impossibility. As the group prepared to move to the firing line, Morrison approached Elena one final time. "Corporal Vasquez," he said, his voice carrying 30 years of authority and genuine concern. "I want to ensure you understand that requesting additional training time shows wisdom, not weakness. This qualification has humbled marksmen with twice your experience and 10 times your combat exposure. Are you absolutely certain you want to proceed rather than spending additional months preparing for this level of challenge?" The question hung in the air while 22 other candidates and 6 instructors waited for her response. Elena could feel the weight of their collective expectation that she would accept the general's offer of graceful withdrawal. Instead, she responded with quiet determination. "Sir, I am prepared to attempt the qualification as scheduled today." Morrison studied her face for a long moment, then nodded slowly, though his expression suggested he was witnessing someone about to learn a painful lesson about the difference between confidence and capability. The formation moved to the preliminary range, where candidates would demonstrate their capabilities at progressively increasing distances before attempting the legendary shot. Elena settled into her assigned firing position, while around her, seasoned marksmen prepared for what they considered routine warm-up exercises at distances they had mastered years ago. First series, 800 meters, announced Staff Sergeant Brennan, his voice carrying across the firing line. Standard target, no time pressure. This should separate the qualified marksman from the hopefuls. He glanced toward Elena's position with obvious expectation that she would struggle even at this relatively modest distance. Elena's first shot struck dead center, prompting a moment of surprised silence from the spotters. Gunnery Sergeant Calderon raised her binoculars for a second look, then called out the score with reluctant accuracy. Hit, center mass. The announcement drew attention from other firing positions, where experienced candidates had expected to witness Elena's immediate elimination from consideration. That's just 800 meters, muttered Lance Corporal Webb to his shooting partner. My grandmother could hit center mass at 800 with proper equipment. Wait until we get to distances that actually matter. His companion nodded in agreement, both men dismissing Elena's accuracy as meaningless when applied to the legendary requirements they would face later. The distance increased to 1,200 meters, where atmospheric conditions began affecting bullet trajectory in ways that required mathematical compensation beyond basic marksmanship training. Elena calculated windage and elevation adjustments with methodical precision while around her. Instructors watched for signs that increasing complexity would reveal her inexperience. Her second shot struck within 2 inches of center, earning another surprised observation from the spotting team. Hit, near center, called Staff Sergeant Kimura, her tone suggesting puzzlement rather than admiration. The accuracy prompted quiet conversations among candidates who had expected Elena to struggle well before reaching legendary distances. She's getting lucky with wind conditions, observed Master Sergeant Thornton to his colleague. 1,200 meters in calm air isn't the same as 2,400 with variable atmosphere pressure. These preliminary shots don't mean anything when facing legendary requirements. His assessment reflected the general consensus among instructors that Elena's performance represented fortunate circumstances rather than genuine capability. Sergeant First Class Ruiz approached Elena's position during the brief pause between distance progressions. Corporal, he said, his tone mixing professional instruction with underlying skepticism. I want you to understand that these preliminary distances bear no resemblance to what you'll face in the final qualification. Atmospheric variables multiply exponentially beyond 2,000 meters. Equipment that performs perfectly at 1,200 becomes unpredictable at legendary distances. Elena nodded respectfully while maintaining focus on her rifle preparation for the next series. Ruiz continued his explanation, clearly hoping to prepare her for inevitable disappointment. I've seen marksmen achieve perfect scores through all preliminary distances, then miss the legendary target by margins that defy explanation. The mathematical calculations become so complex that even experienced meteorologists struggle to provide accurate atmosphere compensation data. The progression continued to 1,600 meters, where several experienced candidates began showing the effects of increased environmental complexity. Elena's third shot struck center mass again, prompting whispered conversations among instructors who had expected her elimination well before this point. That's 3 for 3, observed Gunnery Sergeant Calderon quietly. But 1,600 is still child's play compared to legendary requirements. Corporal Jake Morrison, shooting from the position adjacent to Elena, landed his shot 6 inches low despite extensive experience at this distance. Wind shear caught me off guard, he explained to the spotter, then glanced toward Elena with growing puzzlement. She's handling these preliminary distances better than expected, but preliminary means nothing when facing shots that only legends achieve. Staff Sergeant Brennan consulted his scoring sheet with visible confusion about Elena's continued accuracy. The preliminary distances were designed to eliminate unqualified candidates before they embarrassed themselves attempting legendary shots. Elena's performance suggested either exceptional beginner's luck or capabilities that her file didn't reflect. Either way, the legendary distance would provide definitive answers about her actual ability level. The conversation among instructors grew more pointed as Elena's accuracy continued defying their expectations. "She's performing like someone with years of advanced training," admitted Master Sergeant Thornton reluctantly. "But years of training is exactly what she doesn't have. Combat veterans with multiple deployments struggle at these distances. How is a rookie maintaining this level of precision?" Gunnery Sergeant Calderon offered the most logical explanation for Elena's unexpected performance. "Beginner's luck combined with excellent equipment and favorable atmosphere conditions. The legendary distance will eliminate the luck factor completely. Variables at 2,400 meters require intuitive understanding that develops through extensive combat experience under extreme conditions." The final preliminary distance stretched to 2,000 meters, approaching the threshold where most military engagements concluded and legendary requirements began. Elena studied atmospheric conditions with intense focus while around her, experienced marksmen prepared for the distance where their extensive training would finally demonstrate clear superiority over rookie capabilities. Her fourth consecutive center mass hit prompted absolute silence from the spotting team. Staff Sergeant Kimura lowered her binoculars slowly, then raised them again for confirmation. "Hit dead center," she announced, her voice carrying disbelief that a rookie could maintain such precision approaching legendary distances. The accuracy sparked heated, whispered conversations among candidates who had expected Elena's elimination hours ago. "How's she doing this?" asked Lance Corporal Webb to anyone within earshot. 2,000 meters requires compensation techniques that take years to master. She shouldn't possess the experience necessary for these calculations. Master Sergeant Thornton approached General Morrison with obvious concern about Elena's unexpected performance. "Sir," he said quietly, "the rookie is performing beyond all reasonable expectations for someone with her limited experience. Should we proceed directly to the legendary distance or conduct additional preliminary testing to verify these results?" Morrison studied Elena through his binoculars, observing her methodical preparation and steady demeanor despite the mounting pressure from 22 skeptical candidates and 6 bewildered instructors. "The preliminary distances don't determine legendary capability," he replied. "Equipment performs differently at maximum effective range. Atmospheric variables multiply beyond calculation. Psychological pressure intensifies exponentially. The legendary shot will provide definitive assessment of her actual abilities." Elena overheard portions of the instructor's conversation, understanding that her preliminary performance had surprised but not convinced them about her capability to achieve legendary status. The whispered discussions around her position made clear that everyone expected the legendary distance to reveal the limits of rookie capabilities, regardless of beginner's luck at preliminary ranges. The formation moved toward the legendary firing position, and the atmosphere shifted dramatically as candidates approached the distance where reputations were made or destroyed. Elena walked alongside marksmen who had dominated the preliminary ranges but now faced the qualification that separated exceptional shooters from those achieving legendary status. $20 says she doesn't even see the target through the scope, whispered Lance Corporal Webb to Sergeant First Class Martinez. The betting pool that had started as casual mockery now carried serious money as candidates wagered on exactly how Elena would fail when confronted with legendary requirements. Martinez shook his head and raised the stakes. 50 says she takes one look downrange and requests immediate withdrawal. Staff Sergeant Brennan consulted his clipboard while walking alongside General Morrison, reviewing statistics that told the brutal truth about this qualification's legendary difficulty. "Sir, in the past 18 months, We've had 47 attempts at the legendary distance. 7 hits, all from combat veterans with multiple deployment experience. The rookie's preliminary performance was impressive, but legendary shots require capabilities that develop through years of extreme pressure situations. Morrison nodded grimly, understanding that Elena's accurate shooting at preliminary distances meant nothing when facing variables that experienced meteorologists struggled to predict. The legendary qualification existed specifically to demonstrate the gap between exceptional marksmanship and achievements that earned places in military history. Preliminary accuracy actually makes the inevitable failure more educational, he observed. She'll understand exactly how much she doesn't know about precision shooting. Elena observed the legendary firing position as it came into view, a carefully prepared station that offered optimal stability for attempting shots beyond normal human capability. The position itself reflected decades of refinement, designed to eliminate every possible variable except the shooter's ability to compensate for atmospheric conditions that changed minute by minute at extreme distances. Gunnery Sergeant Calderon positioned herself beside Elena as they approached the firing line. "Corporal," she said, her voice carrying the weight of 8 years training elite marksman. "I want you to observe the target area before attempting your shot. 2,400 meters represents the absolute maximum effective range of your equipment under perfect conditions. Today's atmospheric variables are far from perfect." Elena raised her binoculars and studied the distant target, a barely visible speck that challenged even enhanced optics to resolve clearly. Around her, experienced candidates performed the same assessment with growing appreciation for the qualification's impossibility. The target sat beyond 3 ridge lines that created wind tunnels, affecting bullet trajectory in ways that required intuitive understanding developed through extensive combat experience. "She can't even see what she's supposed to hit," observed Master Sergeant Thornton to his colleague. "The target acquisition alone requires skills that rookies don't possess. Combat veterans spend months learning to identify targets at these distances under field conditions. How does she expect to engage something she can't properly observe?" The mathematical requirements for legendary distance shooting exceeded standard military training by exponential margins. Elena studied atmospheric pressure readings, wind direction indicators, and temperature differentials while around her. Instructors noted her methodical approach, but remained convinced that mathematical calculation couldn't compensate for inexperience at legendary ranges. Corporal Jake Morrison approached Elena's position with obvious concern about her continued determination to attempt the impossible shot. "Listen," he said quietly, his voice reflecting genuine respect for her preliminary performance, combined with realistic assessment of legendary requirements. "I've been shooting competitively since childhood. I've achieved confirmed kills in combat that other marksmen consider exceptional. This qualification humbled me twice. There's no shame in recognizing when a challenge exceeds current capability levels." Elena appreciated his concern, but continued her preparation, checking rifle zero and calculating ballistic compensation for the extreme distance. Jake watched her methodical approach with growing puzzlement. "She's preparing like someone with years of advanced training," he told Staff Sergeant Kimura. "But preparation means nothing when facing atmospheric variables that change faster than human reaction time can compensate." The legendary target represented more than a test of marksmanship accuracy. It simulated engagement scenarios where military snipers operated beyond the range of supporting fire, where missing meant mission failure and potentially friendly casualties. Elena studied the target through her scope while around her. Instructors discussed the psychological pressure that accompanied legendary shot attempts. "Most candidates break down mentally before pulling the trigger," observed Gunnery Sergeant Calderon to Master Sergeant Thornton. "The scope view at 2,400 meters demonstrates exactly how impossible the shot really is. Even experienced marksmen realize they're attempting something beyond human capability and lose confidence before engaging." Elena's scope revealed the target in sharp detail despite the extreme distance, a result of military-grade optics calibrated specifically for legendary range requirements. The site picture showed atmospheric distortion that experienced shooters recognized as nearly impossible conditions for precision engagement. Heat shimmer created optical illusions that made accurate range estimation extremely difficult even with laser measurement confirmation. "She's taking too long to set up," whispered Lance Corporal Webb to his shooting partner. Experienced marksmen know that hesitation at legendary distances usually indicates recognition of impossibility. "She's probably realizing right now that this shot exceeds anything she's trained for." His companion nodded agreement, both men expecting Elena to request withdrawal after truly understanding the legendary requirements. Staff Sergeant Brennan approached Elena's position with obvious preparation for the conversation they would have after her inevitable miss. "Corporal Vasquez," he said, positioning himself where other candidates could observe. "The atmospheric conditions today represent near maximum difficulty for legendary distance engagement. Wind shear between ridgelines creates variables that experienced meteorologists struggle to predict accurately. Are you certain you want to proceed under these challenging conditions?" The question provided another opportunity for face-saving withdrawal, delivered with enough volume that all candidates understood Elena still had options besides public failure. Elena's response would determine whether she joined the majority of marksmen who recognized legendary impossibility or continued toward inevitable demonstration of rookie limitations. "Sir, I am prepared to attempt the qualification shot," Elena replied, her voice steady despite knowing that 22 experienced marksmen and 6 veteran instructors expected her spectacular failure. The response prompted renewed, whispered conversations about betting pools and predictions regarding exactly how badly she would miss when attempting legendary accuracy. General Morrison consulted his watch, noting that Elena had spent appropriate time studying atmospheric conditions and target characteristics. The methodical preparation suggested serious intention to attempt the legendary shot rather than immediate withdrawal. Either way, the next few minutes would provide definitive assessment of whether rookie capabilities could bridge the gap between preliminary accuracy and achievements that earned legendary status in military marksmanship history. Elena settled into the legendary firing position while around her, instructors and candidates shared specific stories of elite marksmen who had attempted and failed this exact qualification. The narrative accounts served as both education and warning about the impossibility she was about to confront. Master Sergeant Daniels approached with a weathered notebook containing records of legendary attempts spanning 15 years. "Corporal," he said, opening to a page filled with names and failure annotations, "I want you to understand the caliber of marksmen who have attempted this qualification. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, 3 combat tours, confirmed kills at 1,900 meters, missed by 14 feet. Gunnery Sergeant Thompson, Olympic shooting team member before military service, missed by 8 feet on a day with better atmospheric conditions than today." Elena listened respectfully while maintaining focus on her rifle preparation. Daniels continued reading from his documentation of legendary failures. Sergeant Major Williams, 22 years of sniper experience, 2 silver stars for marksmanship under combat conditions, attempted this qualification 4 times over 6 years. His closest attempt missed by 3 feet, and he called it the most humbling experience of his military career. The failure stories created a chorus of whispered commentary among candidates who had witnessed some of these attempts personally. Lance Corporal Webb shared his memory of watching Sergeant Major Williams' final attempt. "The man was a legend before he tried this shot," Webb told his companion. Afterward, he said this qualification taught him the difference between being exceptional and being legendary. He never attempted it again. Staff Sergeant Kimura added her own recollection of elite marksmen confronting legendary requirements. "I watched a Navy SEAL instructor attempt this shot last year," she said to the group gathering around Elena's position. "This man had confirmed kills in 4 different countries, all at distances exceeding 1,800 meters. He studied atmospheric conditions for 40 minutes, made perfect mathematical calculations, and missed by 12 feet. Atmospheric variables at legendary distances operate beyond human prediction capability. Elena absorbed each failure account while checking her scope calibration for the extreme distance. The stories weren't intended as discouragement, but as realistic preparation for the impossibility she was attempting. Gunnery Sergeant Calderon continued the educational narrative with her most memorable example of legendary difficulty. 2 years ago, we had a candidate who held the Marine Corps record for long-distance accuracy, Calderon explained. Corporal Henderson had achieved confirmed kills at distances that other snipers considered impossible. He approached this qualification with absolute confidence based on his exceptional combat record. After missing by 16 feet, he told me this shot existed in a category beyond anything he had experienced in 3 combat deployments. The atmospheric conditions today added complexity that experienced meteorologists had warned would challenge even legendary marksmen. Wind patterns between the 3 ridge lines created micro-zones of turbulence that changed direction within seconds. Temperature differentials caused thermal layers affecting bullet trajectory in ways that mathematical calculation couldn't predict accurately. Corporal Jake Morrison shared his personal experience attempting the legendary qualification, hoping to prepare Elena for the psychological impact of confronting impossibility. The first time I tried this shot, I was completely confident based on my combat record, he said quietly. I had made difficult shots under extreme pressure that earned recognition from superior officers. This qualification taught me that legendary means achieving what others consider physically impossible, not just difficult. Elena's methodical preparation continued despite the mounting evidence that legendary requirements exceeded normal human capability. Around her, instructors noted her steady demeanor, but interpreted it as rookie inexperience rather than genuine confidence. She doesn't understand yet what she's attempting, observed Master Sergeant Thornton to General Morrison. The failure stories haven't registered because she lacks the experience to appreciate their significance. The betting pools evolved as candidates observed Elena's continued determination despite overwhelming evidence of legendary impossibility. $50 says she misses by more than 20 feet, wagered Sergeant First Class Martinez. The atmospheric conditions today would challenge marksmen with twice her experience and 10 times her training. Lance Corporal Webb raised the stakes further. 75 says she doesn't even get close enough for the spotters to call the miss accurately. Staff Sergeant Brennan approached with additional documentation of legendary attempts, hoping the accumulated evidence would convince Elena to reconsider her decision. Corporal, he said, displaying photographs of target areas showing miss impacts from experienced marksmen. These images represent attempts by some of the most skilled snipers in military service. The pattern shows that even exceptional marksmen miss by margins that defy their normal accuracy standards. Elena studied the photographs while continuing her rifle preparation. The miss patterns revealed how atmospheric variables at legendary distances created unpredictable bullet trajectories that experienced shooters couldn't compensate for despite perfect mathematical calculations. The evidence suggested that legendary shots required capabilities beyond technical training and mathematical precision. General Morrison consulted atmospheric readings that confirmed today's conditions represented near maximum difficulty for legendary distance engagement. Wind shear measurements showed variable patterns that changed every 30 seconds. Barometric pressure readings indicated thermal instability affecting bullet trajectory calculation. Temperature differentials between firing position and target area created optical distortion, complicating accurate range estimation. The accumulated testimony from failed legendary attempts created an atmosphere of respectful but certain expectation that Elena would join the long list of marksmen humbled by impossible requirements. Master Sergeant Daniels closed his notebook of failure records and positioned himself for optimal observation of Elena's attempt. In 15 years of documenting legendary qualification attempts, he had never witnessed a rookie achieve what experienced combat veterans consistently failed to accomplish. Gunnery Sergeant Calderon made one final attempt to ensure Elena understood the magnitude of her challenge. "Corporal," she said, her voice carrying genuine concern rather than dismissive skepticism. "The marksmen whose failure stories we've shared weren't casual shooters. They represented the pinnacle of military marksmanship achievement. Their inability to achieve legendary accuracy demonstrates that this qualification requires capabilities that extend beyond normal human limits. Are you absolutely certain you want to proceed with an attempt that has humbled the most skilled marksman in military service?" Elena's response would determine whether she accepted the overwhelming evidence of legendary impossibility or continued toward what every witness expected to be spectacular confirmation that some achievements remained beyond rookie capabilities regardless of preliminary performance or determined preparation. General Morrison positioned himself directly beside Elena's firing position, his presence commanding the attention of every candidate and instructor present. "Corporal Vasquez," he said, his voice carrying 30 years of authority mixed with genuine concern. "I need to have a direct conversation with you about what you're attempting here today." Elena maintained her position at the rifle while Morrison continued his assessment. "In 3 decades of training elite marksmen, I have personally witnessed 437 attempts at this legendary qualification. 43 successful hits, all achieved by combat veterans with extensive deployment experience and multiple years of advanced precision shooting training. The mathematical probability of success for someone with your limited experience approaches 0. The general statistical briefing drew the attention of every person present, creating a circle of witnesses to what he clearly intended as Elena's final opportunity for graceful withdrawal. Morrison consulted his documentation with the precision of someone presenting irrefutable evidence. The average experience level of successful candidates exceeds 8 years of specialized sniper training. The minimum combat deployment experience among successful shooters is 18 months in active engagement zones. Your file shows 6 months of basic military service with standard marksmanship qualification. Elena listened respectfully while Morrison continued building his case for withdrawal. The atmospheric conditions today represent severe challenges that experienced meteorologists struggle to predict accurately. Wind shear between ridgelines creates turbulence patterns that change direction every 20 to 30 seconds. Temperature differentials cause thermal layers affecting bullet trajectory in ways that require intuitive compensation developed through years of extreme distance shooting experience. "I want to offer you an opportunity that demonstrates wisdom rather than retreat," Morrison said, his tone suggesting genuine respect for Elena's preliminary performance combined with realistic assessment of legendary requirements. "Additional training time would allow you to develop the experience base necessary for legendary distance shooting. Attempting this qualification prematurely serves no constructive purpose and may damage confidence that could be built through proper preparation." The offer hung in the air while 22 candidates and 6 instructors waited for Elena's response to what everyone recognized as the general's final attempt to prevent her inevitable failure. Morrison's proposal provided complete, face-saving withdrawal with implied promise of future opportunity once she gained appropriate experience for legendary requirements. Staff Sergeant Brennan stepped forward to reinforce Morrison's assessment with additional technical details about legendary distance challenges. "Sir, the ballistic calculations required for this shot exceed standard military training by exponential margins," he said, addressing Elena directly. "Atmospheric pressure variations at 2,400 meters require mathematical compensation that experienced combat engineers struggle to calculate accurately under field conditions." Gunnery Sergeant Calderon added her professional assessment of the technical impossibility Elena faced. "Corporal, the scope adjustments necessary for legendary distance engagement require understanding of optical physics that most marksmen develop through years of trial and error under combat conditions. The mathematics involved exceed anything covered in standard sniper training programs." Elena absorbed their technical explanations while maintaining focus on her rifle preparation. Around her, Instructors exchanged glances that communicated shared certainty about the outcome of Morrison's intervention. The accumulated evidence of legendary impossibility, combined with the general's personal authority, should convince any rational person to accept additional training time rather than proceed with inevitable failure. Master Sergeant Thornton observed Elena's continued preparation despite Morrison's compelling case for withdrawal. "Sir," he said quietly to the general, "the rookie appears determined to proceed regardless of evidence presented. Should we allow her to attempt the shot or implement safety protocols preventing obviously inadequate candidates from wasting ammunition on impossible targets?" Morrison studied Elena's steady demeanor, noting that his detailed explanation of legendary impossibility hadn't produced any visible change in her determination. The preliminary distances had demonstrated technical competence, but technical competence meant nothing when facing variables that combat veterans couldn't master despite extensive experience under extreme conditions. The psychological pressure accompanying Morrison's intervention affected candidates differently based on their experience levels. Seasoned marksmen recognized the general's assessment as accurate reflection of legendary requirements. Rookie personnel might interpret his concern as excessive caution rather than realistic evaluation of impossibility. Lance Corporal Webb whispered to his companion about the betting pool's response to Morrison's withdrawal offer. "Underbucks says she takes the general's advice and requests additional training time. Nobody with half a brain would attempt legendary requirements after hearing those failure statistics." His partner nodded agreement, both men expecting Elena's inevitable acceptance of Morrison's reasonable proposal. Elena's rifle setup appeared technically correct despite the extreme distance requirements. Morrison noted her methodical approach to scope adjustment and atmosphere compensation, but methodical preparation couldn't overcome the experience gap between rookie capabilities and legendary achievements. The equipment performed identically for all candidates, but human variables separated exceptional marksmen from those achieving legendary status. Corporal Jake Morrison approached his uncle with obvious concern about Elena's continued determination. "Sir," he said quietly, "she's preparing like someone with years of advanced training, but preparation doesn't equal capability at legendary distances. Should we proceed with the qualification or require demonstration of intermediate distance mastery before attempting impossible ranges?" General Morrison appreciated his nephew's concern, but understood that Elena's decision would ultimately determine the day's outcome. The qualification existed specifically to demonstrate the gap between confidence and capability at legendary distances. Whether she succeeded or failed, the attempt would provide educational value about the difference between preliminary accuracy and achievements requiring legendary status. The assembled witnesses represented a comprehensive cross-section of military marksmanship expertise, from basic qualified marksmen to combat veterans with confirmed kills at extreme distances. Their collective experience provided overwhelming testimony about legendary impossibility, yet Elena's preparation continued without visible acknowledgement of the evidence presented. Morrison made his final assessment of Elena's determination to proceed despite compelling evidence for withdrawal. "Corporal Vasquez," he said, his voice carrying absolute authority tempered by genuine respect, "if you choose to attempt this qualification today, understand that failure at legendary distances doesn't reflect inadequate training or preparation. It demonstrates normal human limitations when confronting requirements that separate exceptional marksmen from those achieving legendary status in military history." Elena's response would determine whether she joined the majority of candidates who recognized Morrison's wisdom or continued toward what every witness expected to be definitive demonstration of the gap between rookie confidence and legendary capability under impossible atmospheric conditions. "Sir, I am prepared to attempt the legendary qualification shot as scheduled," Elena replied, her voice steady despite the weight of General Morrison's compelling case for withdrawal. The response prompted absolute silence from 22 candidates and 6 instructors who had expected any rational person to accept the wisdom of additional training time. Morrison studied Elena's face for signs of wavering determination, finding none, but also recognizing the steady resolve of someone who didn't fully comprehend the magnitude of legendary requirements. "Very well, Corporal," he said after a long pause. "You have made your decision despite comprehensive briefing on the challenges you face. We will proceed with the qualification under current atmospheric conditions." The general's acceptance of Elena's decision triggered immediate preparation for what everyone expected to be educational demonstration of legendary impossibility. Staff Sergeant Brennan consulted his spotting equipment, while Gunnery Sergeant Calderon positioned herself for optimal observation of the inevitable miss. Master Sergeant Thornton prepared his documentation to record another failure in the long history of legendary attempts. Elena began her final preparation sequence, checking Rifle 0 and calculating atmospheric compensation for the extreme distance. Around her, whispered conversations speculated about exactly how badly she would miss when confronting variables that defeated experienced combat veterans. The betting pools reached peak intensity as candidates wagered on specific missed distances and directions. "She'll be lucky to hit within 50 feet of the target," predicted Lance Corporal Webb to anyone within earshot. The atmospheric conditions today would challenge marksmen with twice her experience and 10 times her combat exposure. Sergeant First Class Martinez raised the stakes higher. 75 says she misses so badly the spotters can't even locate the impact point. Elena's scope revealed the distant target through atmospheric distortion that experienced shooters recognized as nearly impossible conditions for precision engagement. Heat shimmer created optical illusions affecting range estimation despite laser measurement confirmation. Wind indicators showed variable patterns that changed direction every 30 seconds, creating turbulence affecting bullet trajectory in unpredictable ways. The legendary firing position offered optimal stability and equipment support, but human variables separated exceptional marksmen from those achieving legendary status. Elena settled into her shooting stance while around her, instructors noted her technically correct positioning despite obvious inexperience with legendary distance requirements. Master Sergeant Daniels opened his notebook to document Elena's attempt alongside the comprehensive record of legendary failures spanning 15 years. Another rookie about to learn the difference between confidence and capability, he muttered to his colleague. The preliminary distances gave her false confidence about legendary requirements. This shot will provide reality adjustment about what's actually possible in precision shooting. General Morrison positioned himself where he could observe Elena's technique while maintaining clear view of the target area through binoculars. His 30 years of experience training elite marksmen had taught him to recognize the subtle indicators that preceded legendary attempts. Elena's preparation appeared methodical and technically sound, but methodology couldn't bridge the experience gap between rookie capabilities and achievements requiring legendary status. Staff Sergeant Kimura consulted atmospheric readings that confirmed challenging conditions for legendary distance engagement. Wind shear measurements indicated turbulence patterns exceeding normal prediction capability. Barometric pressure showed thermal instability affecting bullet trajectory calculation. Temperature differentials created optical distortion, complicating accurate target acquisition at extreme distances. The assembled witnesses represented the largest audience for a legendary qualification attempt in recent memory. Word had spread through the facility about the rookie who insisted on attempting impossible requirements despite overwhelming evidence for withdrawal. Experienced marksmen gathered to observe what they expected to be spectacular confirmation of legendary impossibility. Elena's breathing patterns settled into the controlled rhythm that experienced shooters recognized as preparation for extreme precision shooting. Around her, candidates noted her steady demeanor but interpreted it as rookie ignorance rather than genuine confidence. "She doesn't understand what she's attempting," observed Corporal Jake Morrison to his shooting partner. The scope view at legendary distances demonstrates exactly how impossible this shot really is. The mathematical calculations required for legendary accuracy exceeded anything covered in standard military training programs. Elena studied wind direction indicators and atmospheric pressure readings while around her. Instructors appreciated her methodical approach, but remained convinced that calculation couldn't compensate for inexperience at impossible ranges. Morrison consulted his watch, noting that Elena had spent appropriate time studying conditions and preparing equipment. The legendary qualification allowed unlimited preparation time, recognizing that atmospheric variables required careful analysis for any possibility of success. Elena's methodical approach suggested serious intention to attempt the shot rather than immediate recognition of impossibility. The target sat beyond 3 ridgelines that created wind tunnels affecting bullet trajectory in ways that experienced meteorologists struggled to predict. Elena studied the distant speck through her scope while around her. Witnesses prepared for educational demonstration of the gap between preliminary accuracy and legendary requirements under extreme atmospheric conditions. Gunnery Sergeant Calderon positioned herself at the spotting scope with clear view of the target area. Her role involved calling Elena's miss with specific distance and direction measurements, providing feedback that might prove educational for future training development. The spotting equipment offered precision measurement capability for impacts within reasonable proximity to legendary targets. Elena's final scope adjustments appeared technically correct despite the extreme distance requirements. Morrison observed her steady positioning and methodical preparation, noting that preliminary distances had demonstrated solid foundational skills. However, foundational skills meant nothing when facing variables that combat veterans couldn't master despite years of experience under extreme conditions. The atmospheric conditions created visible distortion affecting target acquisition at legendary distances. Elena studied the shimmering heat patterns while around her. Experienced marksmen recognized the optical challenges that complicated range estimation and trajectory calculation. The environmental variables represented near maximum difficulty for legendary distance engagement. Staff Sergeant Brennan prepared his documentation for recording Elena's attempt alongside the comprehensive history of legendary qualification failures. The statistical record provided overwhelming evidence that rookie capabilities couldn't bridge the gap between confidence and legendary achievement under impossible atmospheric conditions. Elena settled into her final firing position while 28 pairs of eyes prepared to witness inevitable confirmation that legendary shots required capabilities extending beyond normal human limits regardless of preliminary performance or determined preparation. Elena's finger moved to the trigger guard while around her. The assembled witnesses settled into positions for optimal observation of what they expected to be spectacular confirmation of legendary impossibility. The silence became absolute as 28 pairs of eyes focused on the moment that would separate confidence from capability at impossible distances. General Morrison raised his binoculars toward the distant target, prepared to witness another addition to the long record of legendary qualification failures. His 30 years of experience had taught him to recognize the subtle indicators that preceded missed shots at extreme distances. Elena's preparation appeared technically sound, but technical preparation couldn't overcome the experience gap between rookie capabilities and achievements requiring legendary status. Staff Sergeant Brennan positioned himself at the primary spotting scope with clear view of the target area 2,400 meters downrange. His role involved calling Elena's miss with precise measurements of distance and direction, providing feedback that might prove educational for understanding the magnitude of legendary requirements. The spotting equipment offered accuracy within inches for impacts near the target zone. Elena's breathing settled into the controlled pattern that experienced marksmen recognized as final preparation for extreme precision shooting. Around her, whispered conversations ceased as candidates focused on observing exactly how atmospheric variables would affect rookie capabilities when confronting legendary distance requirements. The educational value of witnessing inevitable failure justified the attention from experienced personnel. The atmospheric conditions represented near maximum difficulty for legendary distance engagement. Wind shear between ridgelines created turbulence patterns that changed direction every 20 seconds. Temperature differentials caused thermal layers affecting bullet trajectory in ways that mathematical calculation couldn't predict accurately. Barometric pressure readings indicated atmospheric instability, complicating ballistic compensation. Gunnery Sergeant Calderon consulted her documentation, prepared for recording Elena's attempt alongside the comprehensive history of legendary failures spanning 15 years. The statistical record provided overwhelming evidence that rookie personnel couldn't achieve what combat veterans consistently failed to accomplish despite extensive experience under extreme conditions. Elena's scope crosshairs settled on the distant target, barely visible through atmospheric distortion that experienced shooters recognized as nearly impossible conditions for precision engagement. Heat shimmer created optical illusions, affecting accurate target acquisition despite military-grade optics calibrated specifically for legendary distance requirements. "This is going to be educational," whispered Master Sergeant Thorne to his colleague. "The rookie will understand exactly how much she doesn't know about precision shooting after missing by margins that defy her preliminary accuracy." Lance Corporal Webb nodded agreement. Both men preparing to witness confirmation that legendary shots required capabilities extending beyond normal human limits. Elena's trigger finger moved into final position while around her. Instructors noted her steady demeanor despite confronting impossible requirements. The psychological pressure accompanying legendary attempts typically affected candidates before trigger pull, causing hesitation or rushed execution that guaranteed failure. Elena's continued determination suggested either exceptional mental discipline or rookie ignorance about the magnitude of her challenge. Morrison observed Elena's shooting stance through his command binoculars, recognizing technically correct positioning despite obvious inexperience with legendary distance variables. Her preparation had followed proper procedures for extreme precision shooting, but proper procedures meant nothing when facing atmospheric conditions that defeated experienced meteorologists' prediction capabilities. The target represented more than a test of marksmanship accuracy. It simulated engagement scenarios where military snipers operated beyond the range of supporting fire, where missing meant mission failure and potentially friendly casualties. Elena studied the distant speck while around her. Witnesses understood that legendary qualification existed to demonstrate the difference between exceptional marksmen and those achieving status in military history. Staff Sergeant Kimura prepared her chronometer for timing Elena's shot sequence, recognizing that hesitation at legendary distances usually indicated growing awareness of impossibility. Experienced marksmen typically realized during final preparation that atmospheric variables exceeded their compensation capabilities, leading to rushed attempts or withdrawal requests. Elena's final scope adjustments appeared methodical despite the extreme distance requirements. Around her, candidates observed her steady preparation while expecting inevitable demonstration that legendary shots required experienced bases that rookie personnel simply didn't possess regardless of preliminary performance or determined attitude. The mathematical calculations necessary for legendary accuracy involved atmospheric compensation techniques that exceeded standard military training by exponential margins. Elena had performed the required calculations, but mathematical precision couldn't account for variables that changed faster than human reaction time could compensate at impossible distances. Sergeant First Class Martinez consulted the betting pool documentation, noting peak wagering on specific missed distances and directions. The accumulated money reflected collective certainty that Elena would join the long list of marksmen humbled by legendary requirements. Nobody expected success, only educational demonstration of the gap between confidence and capability. Elena's breathing reached the natural pause that experienced shooters recognized as optimal timing for trigger engagement. Around her, witnesses prepared for the sound of her shot, followed by inevitable confirmation from spotters that atmospheric variables had defeated rookie capabilities as predicted by overwhelming statistical evidence. The legendary firing position offered maximum stability and optimal equipment support, eliminating every possible variable except atmospheric conditions and human capability. Elena's technical preparation had been flawless, but flawless preparation couldn't bridge the experience gap between preliminary accuracy and achievements that earned legendary status in military marksmanship. General Morrison's binoculars remained focused on the distant target area, prepared to observe impact patterns that would provide educational feedback about atmospheric variables affecting bullet trajectory at impossible distances. His documentation would record Elena's attempt alongside hundreds of similar failures by experienced personnel. The assembled witnesses represented comprehensive expertise in military marksmanship, from basic qualified shooters to combat veterans with confirmed kills at extreme distances. Their collective experience provided overwhelming testimony that legendary requirements exceeded normal human capability regardless of equipment quality or mathematical preparation. Elena's trigger began its final travel, while 28 pairs of eyes prepared to witness inevitable confirmation that some achievements remained beyond rookie capabilities despite determined preparation and technically correct execution under impossible atmospheric conditions that had defeated the most skilled marksmen in military service. The rifle's report echoed across the range with the sharp crack that accompanied precision ammunition fired under maximum pressure conditions. Elena maintained her position behind the scope, while around her, 28 witnesses began the inevitable wait for spotter confirmation of her missed distance and direction from the legendary target 2,400 meters downrange. Staff Sergeant Brennan focused his spotting scope on the target area, prepared to call Elena's impact with the precise measurements that would provide educational feedback about atmospheric variables affecting rookie capabilities at impossible distances. His experience spotting legendary attempts had taught him to scan systematically for bullet impacts that typically missed by substantial margins. The seconds stretched as Brennan searched the target zone through his precision optics, expecting to locate Elena's impact somewhere in the general vicinity of the legendary qualification target. Around the firing line, whispered conversations began speculating about missed distance and direction based on atmospheric conditions that had challenged experienced meteorologists' prediction capabilities. She probably missed by 20 feet minimum, predicted Lance Corporal Webb to his shooting partner. The wind shear between ridgelines would deflect any bullet fired by someone without extensive experience compensating for atmospheric variables at legendary distances. Sergeant First Class Martinez nodded agreement, both men expecting confirmation of spectacular failure within moments. Brennan's systematic search of the target area continued without locating Elena's impact point. The precision spotting equipment offered magnification sufficient to identify bullet holes at legendary distances, but the extended search suggested either equipment malfunction or impact so far from target that initial search patterns hadn't covered the affected area. General Morrison consulted his binoculars with growing puzzlement about the delay in spotter confirmation. Legendary attempts typically produced immediate impact identification because missed shots created visible disturbances in target area soil or background materials. The extended search time suggested either extraordinary missed distance or unexpected spotting difficulties. Staff Sergeant, what's your assessment? Morrison called toward Brennan's position. The spotter continued his methodical examination of the target zone, his extended silence creating growing confusion among witnesses who expected rapid confirmation of Elena's inevitable failure. Atmospheric conditions shouldn't complicate impact identification for misses within reasonable proximity to legendary targets. Elena remained motionless behind her rifle, maintaining shooting position while around her, candidates began expressing concern about the unusual delay in spotter feedback. Experienced marksmen recognized that impact identification typically occurred within 30 seconds of shot execution, regardless of missed distance or atmospheric complications affecting bullet trajectory. Brennan's voice carried uncertainty when he finally responded to Morrison's inquiry. "Sir, I'm having difficulty locating the impact point. The target area shows no visible disturbance patterns consistent with missed shots at this distance." The assessment prompted immediate attention from all witnesses who had expected routine confirmation of Elena's failure within normal spotting timeframes. Morrison approached Brennan's spotting position with obvious concern about potential equipment malfunction affecting impact identification. The precision instruments represented military-grade technology specifically calibrated for legendary distance observation, but atmospheric conditions might create optical disturbances, complicating accurate target assessment under extreme magnification. The general took control of the primary spotting scope, conducting his own systematic examination of the target area 2,400 meters downrange. His 30 years of experience included hundreds of legendary qualification attempts, providing expertise in identifying bullet impacts under challenging atmospheric conditions that affected normal spotting procedures. Around the firing line, whispered conversations speculated about the unusual delay in impact confirmation. "Maybe she missed so badly the spotters can't find where it hit," suggested Master Sergeant Thornton to his colleague. Atmospheric variables at legendary distances can deflect bullets beyond normal search patterns for personnel without extensive experience compensating for impossible conditions. Elena's continued motionless position behind her rifle created growing tension among witnesses who expected either celebration of success or acknowledgement of failure by now. Her steady demeanor suggested either exceptional mental discipline during post-shot observation or rookie uncertainty about proper procedures following legendary qualification attempts. Morrison's examination through the spotting scope intensified as he searched methodically for Elena's impact point. The precision optics revealed the target area in sharp detail despite atmospheric distortion, but extended observation without impact identification suggested either extraordinary missed distance or unexpected developments requiring careful assessment. Gunnery Sergeant Calderon approached the spotting position with backup optical equipment, prepared to assist in impact identification if primary instruments experienced malfunction. The delay in confirmation had exceeded normal time frames for legendary attempts, creating procedural concerns about proper documentation of Elena's qualification results. The atmospheric conditions created visible heat shimmer affecting optical clarity at legendary distances, but experienced spotters typically compensated for environmental disturbances through systematic observation techniques developed over years of training elite marksmen. The extended search suggested complications beyond normal atmospheric interference. "Sir," Morrison said quietly, his voice carrying confusion that drew immediate attention from nearby instructors. "I'm not seeing any impact indicators in the target area." The assessment prompted renewed examination by multiple spotters using different optical equipment to verify initial observations under challenging atmospheric conditions. Elena's breathing remained controlled as she maintained position behind her rifle, waiting for official confirmation of her qualification results. Around her, the growing silence reflected mounting confusion among witnesses who had expected routine documentation of her failure, followed by educational discussion about legendary requirements exceeding rookie capabilities. Staff Sergeant Kimura consulted her chronometer, noting that impact identification had exceeded normal time frames for legendary qualification attempts by substantial margins. The delay suggested either equipment complications or developments requiring careful verification before official assessment could be provided to candidates and assembled witnesses. The target area remained under intensive examination by multiple spotters using precision instruments specifically calibrated for legendary distance observation. Their systematic search patterns covered expanded zones around the qualification target, recognizing that atmospheric variables might deflect rookie attempts beyond initial assessment areas. Morrison's extended silence while examining the target through precision optics created mounting tension among candidates who had expected immediate confirmation of Elena's inevitable failure. The unusual circumstances suggested developments that exceeded normal procedures for legendary qualification documentation, requiring careful verification before official results could be announced to assembled personnel. Staff Sergeant Brennan adjusted his spotting scope magnification to maximum power, conducting the most detailed examination possible of the legendary target area. The precision optics revealed every texture and shadow at 2,400 meters, but his systematic search had failed to locate Elena's bullet impact anywhere within expanded assessment zones around the qualification target. General Morrison took direct control of target verification, understanding that official confirmation required absolute certainty about Elena's qualification results. His examination through multiple optical instruments represented the final authority on legendary attempts, backed by 30 years of experience documenting similar qualifications under challenging atmospheric conditions. "Sir," Brennan said quietly, his voice carrying professional uncertainty that drew immediate attention from nearby instructors. "I've searched the entire target zone using standard impact identification procedures. No visible disturbance patterns consistent with missed shots at legendary distances." The assessment prompted Morrison to conduct his own comprehensive verification using backup spotting equipment. Elena maintained her shooting position while around her. Candidates began expressing confusion about the unprecedented delay in impact confirmation. Experienced marksmen recognized that bullet impacts at legendary distances created identifiable disturbances regardless of atmospheric conditions or miss margins, making the extended search time extremely unusual for standard qualification procedures. Morrison's detailed examination through precision optics continued without locating Elena's impact point in any area surrounding the legendary target. The systematic search had covered zones extending 50 meters in all directions from the qualification target, representing maximum deflection distances for atmospheric variables affecting bullet trajectory at impossible ranges. Staff Sergeant Kimura consulted documentation for legendary qualification procedures, searching for protocols addressing unusual circumstances where impact identification exceeded normal timeframes. The extended delay had surpassed anything in her 8 years of experience training elite marksmen, requiring procedural guidance for unprecedented developments. "Maybe the bullet fragmented in flight," suggested Master Sergeant Thornton to his colleague. Atmospheric pressure at legendary distances can cause structural failure in ammunition not specifically designed for extreme range engagement. The speculation reflected growing concern about unusual circumstances affecting normal qualification assessment procedures. Morrison stepped back from the spotting scope with visible confusion about his inability to locate Elena's impact point despite comprehensive examination using multiple precision instruments. The target area showed no evidence of bullet impact within expanded search zones that should encompass any possible miss margins for atmospheric deflection at legendary distances. Gunnery Sergeant Calderon approached with additional optical equipment, prepared to conduct independent verification of target area assessment. The unusual circumstances required multiple spotters to confirm observations before official results could be documented for Elena's legendary qualification attempt under challenging atmospheric conditions. Elena's steady breathing continued as she waited for confirmation of her qualification results. Around her, the mounting silence reflected unprecedented confusion among witnesses who had expected routine documentation of her failure, followed by educational discussion about atmospheric variables affecting rookie capabilities at impossible distances. Brennan conducted a final systematic examination of the target area using maximum optical magnification, searching methodically for any indication of Elena's bullet impact. His professional experience included hundreds of legendary attempts, providing expertise in identifying impacts under challenging conditions, but this search had exceeded all previous timeframes without positive identification. "Sir," Morrison said, his voice carrying authority mixed with bewilderment, Multiple spotters using precision instruments specifically calibrated for legendary distance observation have been unable to locate impact evidence in expanded zones around the qualification target. The assessment prompted immediate attention from all assembled personnel. The atmospheric conditions created visible distortion affecting optical clarity, but experienced spotters typically compensated for environmental interference through systematic observation techniques developed over years of training. The failure to locate Elena's impact suggested circumstances beyond normal atmospheric complications affecting standard procedures. Lance Corporal Webb whispered to his shooting partner about the unprecedented situation developing around Elena's qualification attempt. This has never happened before in legendary qualification history. Impact identification always occurs within 60 seconds regardless of missed distance or atmospheric variables. Something extraordinary is happening here. Morrison consulted his comprehensive documentation of legendary attempts spanning 15 years, searching for precedents addressing circumstances where bullet impacts couldn't be located despite extensive searching by experienced spotters using precision equipment. The historical record provided no guidance for developments exceeding normal qualification procedures. Elena remained motionless behind her rifle while around her, instructors began discussing procedural options for addressing unprecedented circumstances. The extended delay had created confusion requiring official guidance about appropriate responses when standard impact identification procedures failed to produce definitive results. Staff Sergeant Brennan returned to his spotting scope for one final verification attempt, recognizing that official confirmation required absolute certainty before results could be documented. His systematic examination represented the culmination of comprehensive searching by multiple experienced spotters using different optical instruments. The target area remained under the most intensive examination possible using military-grade spotting equipment specifically designed for legendary distance observation. Multiple spotters had conducted independent searches without locating evidence of Elena's bullet impact within zones that should encompass maximum atmospheric deflection margins. Morrison prepared to announce his preliminary assessment to assembled candidates and instructors, understanding that unprecedented circumstances required clear communication about qualification status pending further investigation. The unusual developments had exceeded all previous experience with legendary attempts, creating procedural challenges requiring careful handling. "Sir," Brennan called out, his voice suddenly sharp with attention. "Wait, I need to examine the target itself more carefully." The statement prompted immediate focus from all witnesses as the spotter adjusted his equipment for detailed examination of the qualification target rather than surrounding impact zones. The precision spotting scope revealed the legendary target in maximum detail through atmospheric distortion that had complicated observation throughout the extended search process. Brennan's systematic examination of the target itself represented a shift from searching for missed impacts to verifying target condition after Elena's qualification attempt. Morrison raised his binoculars toward the distant target while Brennan conducted his detailed assessment using precision optical equipment. The shift in examination focus created mounting tension among witnesses who had expected routine confirmation of Elena's failure, but now faced unprecedented developments requiring careful verification of actual target status at legendary distances. Staff Sergeant Brennan's voice cracked slightly as he spoke into the absolute silence that had enveloped the firing line. "Hit!" The single word hung in the air like a physical presence, creating a moment of suspended disbelief among 28 witnesses who had prepared for inevitable confirmation of Elena's failure at legendary distances. Dead center, Brennan continued, his professional composure struggling to contain the shock of what his precision optics revealed at 2,400 meters. The legendary target showed a perfect bullet hole precisely in the center ring, an achievement that contradicted everything the assembled experts understood about rookie capabilities under impossible atmospheric conditions. General Morrison's binoculars fell from his hands, clattering against the concrete firing platform as he stared toward the distant target. In 30 years of training elite marksmen, he had witnessed only 43 successful legendary shots, all achieved by combat veterans with extensive deployment experience and years of advanced precision shooting training. The silence stretched for 5 seconds that felt like minutes, while experienced personnel attempted to process information that defied their collective understanding of marksmanship requirements at legendary distances. Elena had achieved what seasoned combat veterans consistently failed to accomplish despite extensive experience under extreme conditions. Sergeant First Class Martinez simply stared at Elena's motionless form behind the rifle, his mouth opening and closing without producing sound. The betting pools that had reached hundreds of dollars wagering on her failure suddenly seemed like cruel jokes played by people who fundamentally misunderstood what they had just witnessed. "That's impossible," whispered Lance Corporal Webb, his voice barely audible in the stunned silence. The atmospheric conditions today would challenge marksmen with twice her experience and 10 times her combat exposure. How do rookie compensate for variables that defeat experienced meteorologist prediction capabilities? Master Sergeant Thornton approached the spotting position with obvious need for personal verification of Brennan's assessment. His 8 years of training elite marksmen had included dozens of legendary attempts, providing comprehensive understanding of the technical impossibility Elena had apparently accomplished under maximum difficulty conditions. Thornton's examination through the precision spotting scope confirmed Brennan's incredible assessment. "Perfect center hit at 2,400 meters," he announced, his voice carrying disbelief that drew immediate attention from every person present. The bullet hole appeared textbook perfect despite atmospheric variables that had defeated the most skilled marksmen in military service. Gunnery Sergeant Calderon stood motionless beside her documentation equipment, staring at Elena with an expression of complete bewilderment. Her comprehensive record of legendary failures spanning 15 years provided no precedent for rookie achievement at distances that humbled decorated combat veterans with confirmed kills in multiple theaters. Elena finally moved, slowly lifting her head from the rifle's scope and turning toward the assembled witnesses who remained frozen in shocked silence. Her calm demeanor suggested either complete confidence in her capability or rookie ignorance about the magnitude of what she had apparently accomplished under impossible conditions. Corporal Jake Morrison, who had failed this qualification twice despite extensive combat experience, simply shook his head in disbelief. "She just achieved what I couldn't accomplish with years of advanced training and multiple deployment experience. How does someone with 6 months of basic military service compensate for atmosphere variables that challenge experienced meteorologists?" General Morrison retrieved his binoculars from the concrete platform with hands that trembled slightly from the shock of witnessing something that contradicted his 3 decades of experience training elite marksmen. The statistical impossibility of Elena's achievement required fundamental reassessment of his understanding about legendary qualification requirements. Staff Sergeant Kimura consulted her chronometer with visible confusion about proper procedures for documenting achievements that exceeded all previous understanding of rookie capabilities. Her 8 years of experience provided no guidance for recording legendary success by personnel who shouldn't possess the experience base necessary for atmospheric compensation at impossible distances. The mathematical calculations required for Elena's shot involved ballistic compensation techniques that exceeded standard military training by exponential margins. Her apparent mastery of atmospheric variables suggested capabilities that typically develop through years of extreme pressure shooting under combat conditions. How? The single word came from multiple voices simultaneously as experienced personnel struggled to comprehend Elena's achievement. The question reflected collective bewilderment among witnesses who understood exactly how impossible her success really was given atmospheric conditions and legendary distance requirements. Elena rose from her shooting position while around her, 27 experienced marksmen and 6 veteran instructors remained frozen in shocked silence. Her movement broke the spell of collective disbelief, prompting gradual recognition that they had witnessed something unprecedented in legendary qualification history. Morrison approached Elena's position with obvious struggle to process what had occurred. "Corporal Vasquez," he said, his voice carrying authority mixed with complete bewilderment. "In 30 years of training elite marksmen, I have never witnessed rookie achievement at legendary distances under these atmospheric conditions. Your success contradicts everything I understand about marksmanship requirements at impossible ranges." The assembled witnesses began emerging from their shocked silence, with whispered conversations expressing collective amazement about Elena's legendary achievement. The failure stories shared earlier in the day now seemed like cautionary tales about underestimating capabilities that exceeded normal understanding of precision shooting requirements. Staff Sergeant Brennan continued his verification through precision optics, repeatedly confirming the perfect center hit that defied everything he knew about atmospheric variables affecting bullet trajectory at legendary distances. The evidence remained undeniable despite contradicting comprehensive experience with similar attempts by far more qualified personnel. Elena's legendary shot had transformed her instantly from dismissed rookie to accomplished marksman whose achievement exceeded anything in recent qualification history. The witnesses who had gathered to observe inevitable failure now faced the reality of having witnessed something that challenged their fundamental understanding of human capability under impossible conditions. Morrison's clipboard lay forgotten on the concrete platform beside his fallen binoculars, tangible evidence of his shock at witnessing rookie achievement that surpassed decorated combat veterans with years of specialized training. The statistical impossibility required complete reassessment of legendary qualification standards and expectations. The perfect bullet hole at 2,400 meters represented more than marksmanship achievement. It demonstrated that legendary status could be earned through capability rather than reputation, experience, or extensive training under combat conditions that most personnel considered prerequisite for atmospheric compensation at impossible distances. The silence finally broke as General Morrison approached Elena with visible struggle to process what he had witnessed. "Corporal Vasquez," he said, his voice carrying 3 decades of authority now mixed with genuine respect and bewilderment. "I owe you an apology. My assessment of your capabilities was based on statistical evidence that has proven completely inadequate for understanding what you have accomplished here today." Elena stood at attention while around her. Experienced marksmen emerged from their shocked silence with expressions of amazement and newfound respect. The dismissive comments and betting pools that had characterized her treatment throughout the day now seemed like embarrassing evidence of their collective failure to recognize genuine capability. Staff Sergeant Brennan approached with obvious need to personally acknowledge his error in judgment. "Corporal," he said, his tone reflecting professional humility mixed with admiration, "I have spotted for hundreds of legendary attempts over 8 years. Your shot represents the most precise marksmanship I have ever documented under these atmospheric conditions. I was completely wrong about your capabilities. The transformation in atmosphere was immediate and comprehensive." Lance Corporal Webb, who had led the betting pool's wagering on Elena's failure, approached with visible embarrassment about his earlier assessments. "Ma'am," he said, using the respectful address that her achievement had earned, "I want to apologize for my comments today. You just accomplished something that I couldn't achieve with years of competitive shooting experience." Gunnery Sergeant Calderon closed her documentation notebook containing 15 years of legendary failure records, understanding that Elena's success represented a historic achievement requiring special recognition. "Corporal Vasquez," she announced to the assembled group, "you have just earned legendary qualification status under maximum difficulty atmospheric conditions. Your achievement exceeds anything in our training facility's documented history." Elena's calm response reflected the quiet confidence that had sustained her through hours of dismissive skepticism from experienced personnel. "Thank you for the opportunity to attempt the qualification," she said simply. The understated reaction contrasted sharply with the magnitude of what she had accomplished under impossible conditions. Master Sergeant Thornton approached with obvious need to understand how Elena had achieved atmospheric compensation that defeated experienced meteorologists. "Corporal," he said respectfully, "would you be willing to share your approach to calculating ballistic adjustments for legendary distance shooting? Your success suggests techniques that could benefit our entire training program." Elena's explanation revealed methodical preparation combined with instinctive understanding of environmental variables that typically required years of experience to develop. "The mathematical calculations were straightforward," she said. "Reading atmospheric conditions accurately required careful observation of multiple indicators that many shooters overlook in favor of complex formulas." The assembled witnesses listened with rapt attention as Elena described techniques that seemed obvious in retrospect but had eluded experienced marksmen for years. Her approach emphasized systematic observation over complicated calculations, suggesting that legendary capability might be more accessible than previous understanding indicated. Corporal Jake Morrison, whose 2 failed attempts at legendary qualification had humbled his considerable experience, approached with genuine admiration for Elena's achievement. "You just demonstrated that legendary status comes from capability, not reputation," he said. "Your success has taught me more about precision shooting than years of advanced training under combat conditions." General Morrison consulted his comprehensive documentation of legendary attempts, recognizing that Elena's achievement required formal recognition in training facility records. "Corporal Vasquez," he announced to the assembled group, "your legendary qualification represents only the 44th successful attempt in facility history, achieved under atmospheric conditions that challenged our most experienced personnel." The betting pools that had reached hundreds of dollars wagering on Elena's failure were quietly dissolved as participants recognized the inappropriateness of their earlier skepticism. The money was donated to facility improvement funds as unofficial acknowledgement of their collective error in judgment. Staff Sergeant Kimura approached with official documentation for Elena's legendary qualification, understanding that her achievement required permanent recognition in military marksmanship records. The success under maximum difficulty conditions established Elena as one of the elite marksmen whose capabilities exceeded normal human limitations at impossible distances. Elena's transformation from dismissed rookie to respected marksman was immediate and unanimous among all witnesses. The experienced personnel who had offered withdrawal opportunities now sought her insights about techniques that could improve their own performance at legendary distances. If you enjoyed this story of Elena proving that legends are made through capability rather than reputation, please drop a comment and let us know your favorite part, character, or if you've witnessed similar hidden strength revealed under pressure. Maybe you know someone who surprised everyone with abilities that exceeded all expectations. The afternoon concluded with comprehensive documentation of Elena's historic achievement, including detailed atmospheric readings and ballistic calculations that would serve as reference material for future legendary qualification attempts. Her success demonstrated that exceptional capability could emerge from unexpected sources when challenged by impossible requirements. Morrison's final assessment reflected complete reversal of his earlier skepticism about Elena's qualifications. "Corporal Vasquez," he said formally, "you have demonstrated that legendary marksmanship represents achievable standards rather than impossible requirements. Your success will require fundamental reassessment of our training methods and candidate evaluation procedures." Elena's legendary qualification became immediate facility legend, inspiring other candidates to approach impossible challenges with renewed confidence about human capability under extreme conditions. Her achievement proved that dedication and systematic preparation could overcome statistical evidence and expert opinion about theoretical limitations. The witnesses who had gathered to observe inevitable failure instead became part of historic achievement that challenged fundamental assumptions about legendary qualification requirements. Elena's success demonstrated that capability often exceeded reputation, experience, and conventional wisdom about what remained possible under impossible conditions. Her perfect center hit at 2,400 meters under maximum difficulty atmospheric conditions established Elena Vasquez as a legendary marksman whose achievement would inspire future candidates facing similar challenges. The shot that only legends could make had been accomplished by someone willing to attempt what others considered impossible, proving that legendary status was earned through performance rather than reputation or extensive experience under combat conditions.